Whew, that 15 minutes went fast. So here we are again. I believe this is where we left off, where we were talking about the brainstorming sheet to help kids. And again, the nice thing is some of these resources are done for you, and it's up to you to evaluate if they're going to work for your children and what may not. If you use another brainstorming sheet or some other way you brainstorm, go with that. But this gives you an idea of how you can set it up and maybe some new things to add. All right, so we're going to get out of there and we'll go back. Um, as I go back to the lesson, I believe. Oh, here we go. All right, I believe I left off. Um, I believe I left off right here with the work bags discussion, which basically are bags full of, or little crates full of materials for students in the middle of their desks if they're sitting in groups. But anyway, let's go on. Okay, the instruction and activities section, which is basically the procedure section for your plan. So the author describes that a little bit. And as we go through this plan, think if you were a substitute teacher and had to go in and teach this lesson, would you be able to pull it off? Would you know what you had to do? Okay, so let's look. This is the first activity, and I titled it A. The anticipatory set, which is another fancy name for a hook or engagement. You always want to start off with getting some kind of a hook to get your students interested in learning. And for this particular activity, the plan is to give 5 minutes for this, which I've said that, and if I didn't make that comment on your plans, definitely add times. It will help with pacing. Pacing is one of the hardest things to master. And whenever you write times, you may go over 5 minutes, you may go under 5 minutes, but you'll know, at least have a general idea of how you do. And I also suggest to help with that using a timer. And all you do is you tell the students, okay, we have 5 minutes to work on this and we're going to regroup afterwards. So you set the timer, let it go for 5 minutes, bing, and then do whatever your activity was. All right, for this one, they were going to this hook or anticipatory set, they were going to partner up and discuss some of their favorite summer activities. And the teacher does a nice job here by giving an example, and she gives an example of what she would say after the students share, and only a few would share what their partner and them when they discussed about what their favorite summer activities are. And this particular student was Jada, and it's important to mention the student by name. And if you're even better, would be to write it down. Like I would write Jada, Arkansas. Jada went to Arkansas or something like that, and that, even on a poster board, that gives Jada a sense of community with the classroom. She feels like she belongs. Okay, and then what I did was copy and paste this whole thing here. And I asked the question, which is clearer and easier to read, A or B? There's A, and this is the same thing, but it's in B in a different format. So I still have the time, but you'll notice numbered, a numbered, like a recipe. And I think that if you're teaching and you lose your place, you forget what you're going to do next, especially with a lesson like this where you got a lot going on, and you should always have a lot going on. It's easy to lose your place. I mean, you're doing a million things, and sometimes, hey, it just happens. You should be able to maybe have a copy of this close by, look at it, and say you're on part 2. You should say, oh, this is what comes next. The students are going to discuss with a partner some of their summer activities and why they're their favorite. Okay, so I believe, I don't know, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think B is a lot clearer and easier to read. Okay, and if you notice, I capitalized the word say, S-A-Y, right here, and I still do that, and obviously I did it right here. I do that because those are triggers to me, or cues to me, that's what I want to say. I want to say a certain thing. Obviously, I don't know if Jada went to Arkansas before this whole thing, but whatever is appropriate for what you're teaching at the time, or things that you're going to do, your teacher actions like say or do. I write them in all caps, so that's like a code to myself that I have a specific plan or something I want to do. Okay. All those little tricks will help you with timing and that sort of thing, and to ask better questions, etc. Step-by-step procedures, 15 to 20 minutes. Again, make this a numbered list, like a recipe in a cookbook. You should follow it. be able to follow it and know exactly what you're going to do next, what's coming next. And again, she wrote out the questions. I would write out ask, and then write out these questions. So I know that those are questions I want to ask. And what she's getting to the point of asking these questions and what she's trying to get students to talk about are lists and what lists are used for and when they might use one or when they made a list, grocery shopping or whatever. Who knows what the students are going to answer. You're going to have to, that's a part of the art of teaching. You're going to go with the flow and kind of adjust as needed. All right. And then teachers should share. And again, I just repeated myself. Write action items in uppercase letters like share, like I said, say up here. Whatever I'm going to do as the teacher, I like that as a good prompt for me. It works for me. All right, and then it goes through and it discusses, realistic and non-realistic events, like which we kind of touched on earlier. And then it says in their free time. Okay, students' free time is not your concern. Only include what they're required to do today. What they may or may not do outside of the classroom is beyond your control. You can't control that. You can control what you have them do in the classroom. Maybe they will do that. That would be great. But that should not go in your plan. Okay. And notice I put a smiley face there because it sounded kind of mean. All right, and then you give students time to write down their ideas on a piece of paper, but I wrote how long. That's something you would want to time. I would want to know, okay, you have 7 minutes to write down your ideas on a piece of paper. Start the timer and, go for it. Then the author went on to write, if students are struggling, the teacher may want to brainstorm possible activities for students' summer bucket list and record it on the board. This is an anticipated issue, and this goes in that section where you try and anticipate of your lesson plan, where you try and anticipate issues or barriers to learning. Students may struggle. They may not be able to come up with ideas, so you can help them generate a list of ideas by writing words down on the board. That's all basically what that means. And I think that it's good that that would go in the anticipated section and not in the procedure section here. It seems like that's a better match for it. Okay, and then using words like neatly record their top 6 summer bucket activities. What if using words like that can be dangerous, because what if I have horrible handwriting? I mean, absolutely horrible, but I consider myself a fairly smart guy. So what does that message send to students? Neatly record your top 6 summer bucket activities. Of course you want them to be as neat as possible, but some of us are just not blessed with neat handwriting. So you want to be aware of those unintended messages that you send students. Okay, number of goals may be adjusted depending on the needs of the student. Now, meaning the students are going to write 3 goals or 5 goals, okay? And this author is suggesting that they may be adjusted depending on the needs of the students. And I wrote, is this an accommodation or modification, and why does that matter? They're very similar words, but they have very different meanings. Accommodations keep the same objective, but they just change the path to get to that objective. Modifications change the objective. So, and this isn't the time to have that discussion, but you're going to want to think. You want to make accommodations as much as possible and not modifications, unless they have an IEP that states that. Because you're not doing modifications actually hurt achievement, and they kind of set up students for like low expectations, right? Okay. If students finish early, they may create a non-realistic summer list. This is meant to be an extension activity. Do you think it has enough weight? I'll let you decide on that. So I would, again, move this to the extension piece in your lesson plan because that's what it is. If they finish early, they may create a non-realistic summer list where they say that they're going to climb Mount Everest, they're going to scale the Great Wall of China, whatever they want to come up with, okay? All right, and then we get on here. When students are finished, they may present their ideas to the class or small group. Again, by the time you put pen to paper or finish typing, I should say, this should be worked out. You need to know exactly. Are they going to present their ideas to the class? Are they going to present their ideas to the small group? How is that going to work? You got to think of all these things because it can catch you up. This is where classroom management can get tricky, and I wrote here. Um, and what I'm discussing are not the class or small group. That can get tricky. But when you have students come up, and it makes sense, right? You do something and then you go in front of the room and present it to the class. But what are those other kids doing while they're sitting at their desks? If you have a kid who has behavior issues or problems, I like to call them frequent flyers that are always in the principal's office. I can guarantee you're going to have problems if you ask them to sit there and listen to 20 students come up and tell you about their summer activities. Um, but one thing that I did, and it works sometimes, it doesn't work all the time, so you got to adjust and be flexible, would be something like a listening paper. And please come up with a better name than that. That was all I could think of. But what that is, a listening paper, I would have the students at their desk, each student gets a copy of this paper. All right, and I just called it a listening paper. On a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the highest, rate your classmates' summer bucket list. Remember, they will be grading you as well, so be kind, fair, and positive with your comments. Then I just have them circle one of these. But here's the important part. 2 questions. What did you like most about your classmates' bucket list? And they could write that down. And write a question if you did not understand something about your classmates' bucket list. Maybe they have something they need cleared up, or they want to ask a further probing type question, whatever. And you notice I made this, I would do this a lot because that's another kind of thing you don't get taught in college whenever you're becoming a teacher, is that sometimes some schools count the number of clicks that you use whenever you're making copies. So you want to try and be as efficient as possible. So for this particular one, I could fit 2 of these on one page, and this is just the same thing as up here, but just to kind of show you that. All right, that's done. Okay, so having students do that at their desk keeps them involved, and I would even assign, depending on what your oh my gosh, report card looks like. I used to have a listening grade. That would be a part of my listening grade. I would actually collect all that stuff, and that would be a part of my listening grade. I would add it to their grade book so students know that it matters that they listen. Okay. Hanging up the finished buckets would be a great way for students to read about their peers and start conversations amongst students. Or for an extension activity, another extension activity, again, this is all, you've got to figure out how much time you have and if you can pull this off or not. You have to think about how long this will take. You're estimating, right? Have them interview 3 other kids, maybe 1 other kid, 2 other kids, whatever works, and write down 3 facts about them. So the kids will get up and moving. That's a kinesthetic type activity where they're walking around the room and writing down 3 facts about a classmate of theirs, and then they share that. That would be another extension type activity. And be flexible enough where you could have some students come up in front of the room and discuss their own bucket list, and then have some students who were able to get to the extension activity, maybe they finished early, to come up and share the facts that they learned about their classmate. So they may not be doing the same type of thing, but you could pull it off completely. Okay. Now, here's the big one. Assessment, for some reason, is always, well, not for some reason, it is always tricky. Assessment. Let's look at what this person suggests. Having the students share, observe. Whenever I'm reading your lesson plans, this is what I'm looking for. What are you going to do to try and tie this stuff back to your objectives? Observe. Why not add a checklist whenever you're observing? A checklist makes it more concrete. And what I did was I pulled up a website. Use Google, guys. Go for it. You guys do it for personal stuff. I do. So use it for teaching stuff as well. And by checklist, this is what I mean. I would have all my students' names on here. This one happens to be for Common Core Standards, 3rd grade speaking and listening. So actually, it's not that far off because we're 2nd graders and they're speaking and listening. So, but anyway, you could either use the Common Core Standards in here, and you make a quick check, like Neil Green, SL1, check, he did it. SL1A, no, he wasn't able to do it. However you want to handle it. This is more for you and for record keeping. Now, if I'm your principal or director and I walk in your classroom and I say, how's Neil doing? How's it going? You have this record, and you're not going to fill it out all in one day. Maybe you're just looking for this one skill today. All right, check or X, and say you